Hold up. Had to throw on the Drake turtleneck sweater. Alright, now I'm ready. 6.
I pull up in Lexus like it's '07. I just hit a lick, I gotta hit the next one. Last year, I know you learned your lesson. I could GPS you if you need addressing.
Drake is at an all-time high in his career right now. He's had a pretty good year last year, starting with the mixtape If You're Reading This Now It's Too Late, which dropped out of nowhere and had huge commercial success. It even earned him a Grammy nomination for Best Rap Album of the Year and had the huge hit Know Yourself. Then we had the Drake Meek Mill beef, which gave us Back to Back, another huge hit that gave him another Grammy nomination for Best Rap Performance, as well as making him one of the hottest rappers in the game. Drake continued his winning streak of dropping What a Time to Be Alive and Jumpman with Future. Then he did Hotline Bling, which got its own Christmas sweaters and tons of memes. And then he continued with Summer 16. Drake is pretty much at an all-time high right now, calling himself the Sex God, and this is easily his most anticipated project yet. So naturally, in order to get ready for this album, I had to put myself in a Drake mood. I was texting all my ex-girlfriends. I was sliding in a couple DMs.
Things slide on a late night. You like to slide on a late night. You sent her all you hit text without an invite. That's that shit that I don't like. We both.
So what did I think? Did Drake finally drop a classic? Not really. This album is really more just like classic Drake. What I mean by that is there's a lot of songs focusing on past relationships and regrets, and it's doing a lot more of the emotional singing Drake than it is the club banger Drake, which I'll admit is kind of a disappointment, especially given all the songs he gave us last year. Because I was ready for this album. Last week I was finna hit the club. Last week I was finna go out. Last weekend, honey buns, cinnamon, and pastries was about to get paid. But instead, I stayed at home and just thought about ex-girlfriends. Instead, I was scrolling through their timelines. Instead, I was sending group DMs to all my exes. If you're reading this now, it's not too late. I still believe in us. And for all the girls that I missed out on, if you're watching this now, it's not too late either. Drake albums are the best time to get back together. All jokes aside, I really think this album didn't live up to the hype or the expectation. My first thoughts on this album were that there was probably only 2 or 3 good songs, and they were one dance, still here, and hype. I wasn't really feeling a lot of the other songs, and I thought this album was pretty slow. It lacked a lot of energy. The lyrics were terrible, and a lot of the songs were pretty monotone, both in subject and in the way that they were produced, and in the way that Drake was kind of rapping slash singing on it. But those are just my first thoughts. After I gave the album a couple more listens, it started to really grow on me. This album is a mixed bag, but I think your opinion of it definitely changes after you give it like a good 4 or 5 listens. So what I will say is that this is definitely not for the casual Drake fan looking for the hits for the club, or it's not even for some real Drake fans, because it's just so Drake. Like, this is the most Drake album I've ever heard.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It's
Gets
gross.
the people going.
Now, overall, I'd like to go over a couple points from the album. First off, the production and the beats on this album is solid. It's better in some songs than in others. I really liked it in the opening track, Keep the Family Close. I think that track alone shows a lot of growth in some of the beats and material that Drake is starting to work with. It was really grand and it sounded like something I'd seen in a James Bond movie. However, the rest of this album can seem kind of monotone the first couple times you're going through it. None of the beats really stand out, and they're all really chill and really laid back, which isn't a bad thing if that's the kind of music you prefer. However, given that the album is pretty lengthy, the chill, laid back thing doesn't really work for me the whole way through. Now, lyrically, this album is a complete mess. In fact, this is probably my biggest problem with the album. I used to always joke that Drake had all of these one-liners because everything he said would get played out to the point it would end up on shirts or clothing, and people would post it all over social media. But you have none of this here because most of the lines on this album are flat out terrible, like legit struggle bars. And this is really what holds the album back, because I could get over the sleepy beats, but sleepy beats plus lazy lyrics equals pretty poor impression. And given that a lot of the songs are like more emotional songs that he wants you to connect with, it's really hard to connect with the content when the delivery is so bad. Now, it's clear what are supposed to be the hits or the singles on this album. You have One Dance, which came out recently. You have Still Here and Hype, which were two of my first favorite songs on the album, specifically because they just stood out from all the other songs. They literally woke me up. I remember listening to Redemption, falling asleep during With You, and all that stuff, and then Still Here came on, and I was like,
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. 6 point star, lion of the Judah. All my niggas ain't off rockin' Gucci. Wanna do it, then we all gotta do it.
but ultimately, those songs don't even compare to some of the hits that Drake dropped last year. And it's kind of funny that Drake would drop two Caribbean influenced songs after doing work with Rihanna, but these two songs are clearly inferior. Now, I will say that a lot of the slower songs that I was initially criticizing turned out to be really good songs in the end. Now, one of my favorite songs is Feel Away. I really like the content on that song. I really like the choppy beat, and I like the way that he's singing over the chorus. I also like With You, which features Party Next Door and Is You With Me, the song where he's basically talking about a text conversation between one of his ex girlfriends. So I will give Drake that most of these songs do require a couple listens for you to get used to them. But at the same time, most of the songs are just kind of alright. Some of them are good, but very few of them are really great. Now, what I will say is that a lot of these songs have moments on them, and those moments usually tend to be where he switches up the beat, or where he changes his voice, or where he switches up the flow, and those are usually my favorite Drake moments. My problem is that on this album, those moments are few and far between. Now, the thing about this album is that it doesn't seem very well balanced to me, and I think it has to do with the way that he set it up. He wanted it to be winter, summer, winter, and I sort of like that idea. But the problem is the winter songs are really slow. All of the good songs are the summer songs, which are all in the middle and all bunched together. And then you have another string of very slow songs to exit the album. I think this album would have been slightly better if he had a lot more of the summer hits breaking up a lot of the slower songs, because it's really hard for you to get through those string of songs the first couple times through. I also think that these songs just don't compare to past Drake songs. None of these songs are really the best songs that Drake have ever made. And if someone were to ask you what song should I listen to off this album, I'm really not sure which song I would recommend because they're all just kind of alright and they all take a couple listens for you to like them. I'm not gonna go around saying Redemption's the best song on this album or you should definitely listen to Nine because those songs are just kind of like mediocre. They fit within the album, but on their own, they're really not Drake's best. Going back to the theme of the whole winter, summer, winter thing, I think that was a really good idea. Unfortunately, the winters are just way too long and the summers are way too short. And I was sort of excited about this idea because Drake has never really involved any sort of theme or concept of his album. And the fact that this was called Views from the Six, I was kind of excited because I thought Drake would finally have something new to bring into his music besides, ex girlfriends and nights at the strip club. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. We still get the same subject matter that Drake always delivers. And I really think this was a miss for him. I think this album could have easily been a classic if Drake had just rapped about the six. Because what do we know about it besides the fact that it represents Toronto? Because a couple lines on the song kind of allude to his, I guess, early days with his day ones. There's even a line where he says there's a couple stories he'd mentioned, but we wouldn't believe it. Why not give us those stories? Why not tell us about the six from your point of view? Is it what we all think it is, or is it different? This was his chance to sort of kind of give us more information about the area. This album could have easily paralleled Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City. Why? Because that was an album where Kendrick was talking about his city and he was talking about, experiences that he had within the city. And that's what made it so great. It was storytelling. He could have even done one of those 30-minute music videos that a lot of artists seem to be doing nowadays, where he basically sort of, maybe just goes through a day or he goes through a couple days in the six and he's just showing us all these places that he goes to, all of these places that his boys are from. And I think that would give us a much better understanding of where Drake is from because we treat him like a celebrity. We make fun of him for being an actor. We say that he hasn't had a hard come up. And while that might be true, that might not be necessarily true for everyone in Toronto. So this was just a chance for him to shed light on a different aspect of the six. And I was just largely disappointed that he was going for a theme but didn't follow through with it. Right now, all we know about Toronto is that it's really cold and it has the largest population of Drake's exes. Now, I'm not sure if this is a creative decision or if it's based on something else, but something interesting he's been doing with this album and with If You're Reading This Now It's Too Late is he's been including a lot more Jamaican influences, either in the beat or with the outros or with the ad libs. Now, if it turns out that a significant amount of the population is actually Jamaicans, then that's really cool because that's something that I kind of learned listening to Drake's albums or listening to Drake's songs. Now, this is a very interesting way to kind of expand upon the 16. I'm not necessarily saying you have to rap about a mission you went out with your boys. All I'm saying is that you have to do things within your songs to sort of give us a better idea of what it means to be in Toronto, the city that you represent. Now, my reason for kind of rambling and going on about this is because Drake is already established to be one of the best entertainers of our generation. The thing is that Drake can keep making hits and making hits and making hits, and he can keep rapping about nights in the strip club, and he can continue with his career and reminiscing. And, all he'll ever be doing is making more and more hits, but he'll never really elevate himself to like that top five level that he keeps saying he is. There's something holding me back from holding him next to Jay-Z and Kanye and Kendrick. All that being said, I still think the album is solid overall. I mess with this album even though it's a mess in a lot of ways. The production in some places is nice, other places is lacking. The lyrics overall are kind of bad. I can't get past that. I mean, come on, you playing with me like Happy Meals? That's a bad line. Some songs are just clear misses for me. I think Grammys belongs on What a Time to Be Alive, and I think they just forgot to put that on the last album. Too Good is easily the worst Drake Rihanna song ever. Fire and Desire are also like clear misses for me. I know a lot of people might like Views, but I think the wordplay on that thing is just so weak and the beat is just so uninteresting. And I actually like 6 p.m. in New York a lot more than I like this outro. I think this is an album everyone's going to have their own opinion of. Some people are going to hate it, some people are going to like it, some people are going to love it. But I don't think it's a clear win. At the same time, I don't think he really took an L for this album either. Like I said, while there's a lot of things I don't like about it, there are things that I do like about it. The problem is that it's just largely forgettable. In 2 weeks, I don't know if I'll still be listening to this thing. In 1 year, I don't know if anyone will be listening to this thing. It doesn't have any standout features, it doesn't have any standout hits. This album is enjoyable but flawed, and ultimately underwhelming but entertaining. It's kind of weird that I have my own mixed feelings about it, but that's just what it is. So what did you think? Did you like the album? Did you think it lived up to expectations? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know what's your favorite Drake album or what's your favorite Drake song off this album. And be sure to share this video with your exes, your baby mamas, and your friends on Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. And be sure to come back to this channel for future album reviews. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Looking, 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 looking for revenge. Home critic on scene, home critic on scene. Known cynic, I mean. Been asleep for a few months ever since BVS hit the screen. Woke up for some Drake, then went back to sleep, looking for revenge. So I made a review of you to tell you guys that we're gonna waste your time listening to this album because it's nothing new. Gave it a listen and deleted it. Now only views that I care about is coming from you. Spitting like Drake, I can get bars that are ghostwritten too. Yeah, so you can find me out here looking for. They don't want us to have more views than PewDiePie.